Hello, hello. Welcome to the 45th episode of the Veggies Abroad Vegan Travel Podcast with the Chief Veggie Pusher, myself, Rebecca Gady-Sawicki. Some of you may already be familiar with Veggies Abroad, but for those of you who aren't, we're a full-service vegan travel company that offers custom planning services, small group trips, a helpful blog chock full of just about everything a vegan or veg-curious traveler could possibly need to plan an adventure, and this podcast. With this podcast, I aim to amplify the voices of businesses championing vegan and vegan-friendly options, responsible tourism practices, the environment, community impact, all things that we need more of and must actively support. I feel like one of those highlight reels that ends up in a Jimmy Kimmel bit about how they can't believe something. Usually it's with newscasters. Well, folks, I can't believe it's August. For you, that probably means nearing the end of the lovely summer, and that's the same for me. But it also means that we're close to the deadline for our last trip of the year to Thailand, and it also means 2026 is literally on my doorstep. Yours as well, but it feels very impending for me. I'll say I am pretty ready for a whirlwind end of year. We have 3 trips within 3 months at the end of the year and to start 2026 right after that. Most of our trips for next year are set. We're a little more than halfway done, and there are just a couple more to finalize. And you might be surprised to hear this. I've already started in on 2027 and fielded emails from some of you asking about 2027. It's coming. I'm working on it. I promise. The veggies here, I never sleep. I was going to say we, but really it's me. Never sleep. In addition to small group trips, there are some other changes in the works too. I'll let you all in on a little secret. Things are growing over here. We're kind of in that weird pubescent preteen phase. Try and say that 3 times fast, where things feel really awkward and unnecessarily moody, but it will all get better and easier eventually. Or at least that's what people told us. Once things get a little more settled and clear, you will all be the first to know some of the things that are coming down the pipeline. But for today, we're chatting about a country that straddles 2 continents and is home to a diversity of landscapes, culture, and all kinds of things, Turkey. And returning once again to chat all about my experience is the man who once drove 40 minutes out of his way and missed a meeting to get me the correct passport, Matt. Hi, Matt.
Hello.
No comment on the passport?
No comment on the passport. The only comment I want to make is on the preteen.
You want to skip over the passport part for that? I think the passport's a better story, but fine. Go ahead. What's your comment?
No, you're right. The passport is a way better thing. But I was just thinking I had this vision of an 8th grade dance in my mind when you were talking.
This is exactly how I feel right now, is like an 8th grade dance. Yes,
that's what I'm thinking.
You're 1,000% right. And I don't like it. And I look forward to the 9th grade dance.
So
even though I don't think the 9th grade is better.
Hands on your partner's hips and their hands on your shoulders. Like that's all it can be. And then there will be chaperones there to tell you what to do. Mine, mind you, was in a Catholic school. So there was like nuns marching around the gym because our dance was in the gym, like making sure, like with a ruler, we were so. Anyway.
Wow. Well, that just made things sound even worse. God.
Anyway, weird vision coming from your growth. And
growth in all forms sucks.
Really
anyway, moving back to Turkey. Where do you want to start?
Definitely not with going to get your passport, I'll tell you that much. But
well, we didn't have to for this. That's a story for another episode.
Definitely. Stay tuned, people. All right. So I guess the first thing that you have to ask is, why Turkey? What sparked that trip? Like, why did you want to go to Turkey of all places?
Yeah, so the original interest came from client requests. I had received some requests last year for trips to Turkey. I had some potential interest in tours. So when that happens and it's a destination that I feel really out of my depth on, then that requires a pre-trip for it. I wouldn't ever do a tour somewhere if I really didn't feel comfortable with it. And Turkey was definitely kind of how I felt with that. So I was going to Madrid first for a conference and figured, all right, let's make the most of my time while I'm over here. There was a trip that lined right up to my dates to Madrid, and I tacked it on that way.
Yeah, so going in, what kind of experience were you expecting? And was there anything when you got there that really surprised you once you arrived?
For this one, I kind of knew in the back of my head that it would be challenging. And it was. It definitely was probably one of my more challenging trips overall that I can like think of. I was really trying to think, was there anyone that might have been worse? But yeah, I'd say this one was probably, it was on the top five lists of challenges. And that was really the only thing that I thought of. And challenges as far as like food was concerned. That was like my biggest concern. I mean, I knew that I'd find some things, and I was hoping to just be delightfully surprised by things. But the reality of it was a challenge. And Istanbul, not a problem at all. Tons of great options. Highly recommend. Outside of Istanbul, things get really rough fast. And we can definitely go into that a little bit more.
So, your destination, the first place you travel to, the reason I almost feel like you went to Turkey is Istanbul, and it's because probably of all the cats. Like, that's all I think about. Like, I know why she wanted to go to Turkey. She wanted to go see the cats of Istanbul, just like the documentary we watched.
Yeah, don't tell our cats that. No, definitely was not drawn for the cats. That's for sure. Or the stray dogs. It's not just limited to cats as well, but there are far more cats than there are dogs. The city definitely did earn its nickname, Cat City or whatever the heck it is. Rightfully so from the amount of cats that there are there. So the itinerary that I did, it was a jaunt through a good section of the country. We started in Istanbul, then went to Kankale, which includes Troy. Then from there, Selkuk, Konya, and then the Cappadocia region, and then whirled back to Istanbul. So we started and stopped both in Istanbul. So we got a pretty good overview of the entire country, which is great. And that is always my goal, because if you only went to a country and you went to its major city, you're not going to have a perspective of it, a really good perspective of it, because the major cities are always far more diverse, generally easier to navigate in many more ways than one, than maybe more rural areas. And so I think it's important to always have kind of that mix of experiences so that you have a better perspective of the whole.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I can understand your perspective. You know, you want to learn about the place for your clients, and you really want to go around the country and see everything that it has to offer. And are vegans going to be able to eat there? Which is probably the number one question going back to earlier podcasts that I'm sure you get. But let's do a deep dive on Istanbul. What were your first impressions of the city? It's so big, it's sprawling, it goes across two continents. Like what did you think about Istanbul?
So my first impression was, oh my God, there are so many people. I started my journey at the start of a major holiday, and everybody generally, well, not everybody, a good portion of the people generally leave the city for holidays. But people were speculating that maybe because of inflation, expenses, things like that, people were staying in Istanbul. Wow. So you had the normal there, you had regular like people who live in the area that were there, then you had foreigners coming in to visit. There were a lot of people. I did not expect that. I did get to see both sides of that. So I saw the really busy side and then the more back to normal side. And that was far more manageable than my first couple of days. In the back of my head, I thought, oh my God, if this many people come to Istanbul on a regular basis, like nobody wants to come here. It's so hard to get around because it's just not. The tram system isn't large enough to handle that amount of people. Ferries aren't large enough to handle that amount of people. The efficiencies of a city handling that many people all at once just aren't quite there. But luckily, it went back to normal. So that was my first reaction kind of to it. My second was, this place is pretty neat. It is a wild mix. The old town is, of course, filled with all of the things we see pictures of, the Hagia Sophia, the Grand Bazaar, the Blue Mosque, which are all, very unique and, beautiful, interesting places. But then when you go across the river, the Bosphorus, so Istanbul is always well known because it straddles both sides of continents, the Europe and Asia. So you have the Anatoli side, which is also better known as the Asia side of Costa Rica, the Asian side of Istanbul, and then the European side. And so you go across that way, and that offers another unique perspective on the city. You can get into neighborhoods a little bit more easily over there. It's not quite as busy as the European side, which was really interesting. And the city is giant. The city is really, really huge. And actually, most people only focus kind of on the city proper. But to actually get out of the full city, it takes over like an hour. When we first started driving to Troy, or the Cancun area, I'm so sorry, I'm probably really butchering that name, but it is in the Gallipoli Peninsula. That was about an hour just to originally get out of Istanbul. So it gives you an idea that there's so much more to the city than what we kind of like zoom in on Google Maps.
So then I know that when we were talking while you were there, you were describing mass chaos on a ferry.
Oh yeah, that was because of the holiday.
Can you tell us a little bit about like that experience using their public transit?
Yeah, so public transit is kind of an issue. Actually, okay, so I want to back up out of that. Public transit isn't really an issue, but getting around Istanbul is a bit of an issue. So my first night, I got in super late. I got in about 2 a.m. And that next day, I had something planned at 10 a.m. And I was really trying to stay in bed as long as possible. And so I was thinking, okay, I'll just take a taxi for this, first thing, and then use the tram from then out. I downloaded a taxi app, asked the hotel, like, is this taxi app legit? And they're like, yep, it's fine. So I was like, okay, I'm all right. So I used the app because Uber does not work in the same way that it works like here in the US or Canada or other parts of Europe. It just connects you to a taxi. So it's better just to use the taxi app. So taxis, and this won't be a surprise for anyone that has been to Istanbul, they don't have a great reputation. They are known for ripping people off. They're known for taking you on a circuitous route to charge you more money. They're known for all kinds of nefarious, unfortunate business, and they try and get away with it, especially with tourists. And so when I put in for the taxi to show up, at first was like, oh, it's only 500 meters away. And I'm like, great. Like I'll get there with plenty of time. And then all of a sudden the taxi went on, like I can see it on the map. It went on a little adventure. And then it's like on the other side of the city for me. And I'm like, what is going on? And the guy at the hotel saw me waiting because I waited for like 15 minutes. And so he was like, hey, okay, so you need to cancel this. You're never going to get a taxi at this rate, and just take the tram. And here's my Istanbul card, because I don't know if you can just pay for it with a credit card, and just take the tram. It's a straight shot up. And I was like, okay,
so nice.
Here it goes.
To give you his card.
Yeah. I know. It was so, he didn't know me. We didn't even meet the night before or anything. Just such a really generous human being. I didn't end up needing to use it because they do take credit cards. You can just tap in and on every ride. But the tram is great. It's super efficient, straight shot on both areas of the European side. And I used it the rest of the time. I never tried to get another taxi again. There is also a metro system. I did not use the metro. The ferry is pretty great because it does leave regular durations. I think it leaves between the European and Asian sides almost every 15 minutes or so. And there are a couple different ports. But when there's a holiday, you do have to prepare for crazy crowds, and there is no like line. People don't get in line. They just all crowd around the kiosk to get in. Nobody's managing these kiosks. And once it gets closer to the time when they're going to open up the kiosk, people start pushing. And so you can imagine with 100 people trying to get on a boat, it gets really uncomfortable, and it starts to feel a little bit like Squid Games. I was thinking, like, this is going to be the way that I'm going to get trampled. But also, there are like little kids that are around me as well. And so they easily, like, legit could get trampled. So my very first experience with the ferry was not a great one. But once I came back after the holiday, the ferry was back to normal like everything else. Nobody was pushing. There weren't crazy crowds trying to get on it. And that felt much more manageable.
The thing that runs through my head is pickpockets. Like when you're talking about all those crowds.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. That would be rife with like pickpocket action. I mean, knock on bamboo. I did not have any issues, so all good. But yes, that's something to always keep in mind.
That's great. That is great that nothing like that happened to you. Now, anyone that knows you knows that you are a coffee freak. Like, you love it. You're a connoisseur. Like, everywhere you go.
I don't know that I would go to connoisseur.
You are a connoisseur. You've had coffee around the world. You've drinking coffee in places that many people probably don't even think about. So your coffee game is high, my friend. So I want to ask you.
Kind of.
You took a Turkish coffee workshop. What was that like?
Yeah, so I guess the more interesting thing is Turkish coffee is, well known, but Turks actually drink way more tea than they drink coffee. I had a stat, and I don't have it with me right now, but it's like a crazy amount of tea that they actually drink. Coffee is very popular, but not as popular as tea is. But the Turkish coffee workshop that I did, they showed you how to make the coffee on sand. So traditionally they would use sand to heat it up. And like there's this whole process, like it's a whole thing. And like the interesting thing about learning about coffee was that it was way more of like back in the day, way more of like an unspoken conversation for people. So if you drank water after drinking the coffee, that had a meaning to it. If you drank water before, drinking the coffee, that would also carry a different meaning with it. During the process of like arranged marriage, coffee would always be a part of that activity. And if the potential bride put salt in the coffee and the groom tasted it and he was a kind person, he would know, okay, she's not interested in me and I need to stop this. If it was sweet, then that meant, okay, she's willing to go forward with it, which I thought was super interesting to learn. While arranged marriages aren't as popular today, that's still, that same thing is still used with the sugar and the salt, but more in a fun way. Normally now brides will put a lot of salt in it just to see if he can take it. And he's meant to, he's got to, because relationships are hard. He's got to suck it down. And I got a real good kick out of that, of course. But then at the end of drinking the coffee, there's still the grounds. So Turkish coffee is pretty strong. And then the grounds are like sand kind of in the bottom of the cup. And there is like a fortune telling side to this. Now there's like I guess I don't want to say a bit of a rub with this, because Turkey and Istanbul are generally, most people practice, most people are a Muslim, and in that faith they don't believe in like fortune telling or anything along those lines. But at the same time, many people aren't practicing, and it's still, I guess you could consider it maybe a fun thing to do. So you might have an interesting conversation with someone if you talk to them about the fortune telling part of this, which is what I'm trying to get to with my meandering there. So the coffee grounds at the bottom will create, there's like a little thing you do. You flip the cup onto its, and to the opening onto your plate, and you let it sit for a minute until it cools. So it has to be completely cool. And then you flip it back over. And the coffee grounds then have moved, and they've created like this picture. And so the person, the person who is good at fortune telling coffee grounds, I guess that's in your circle that you're drinking with. For us, it was the person leading the workshop. Then we'll take the cup and look at it and tell you, we'll read you fortune from it. And so that it was super interesting. There were 3 other women with me that were doing it. And we all had different readings. Mine was positive. And I remember the one Italian lady, he said to her, he said, "Are there a lot of people jealous of you?" And her friends all burst out laughing. They were dying. And she was like, "Yes." It was just a great experience. It was really neat to see how like something that seems so simple of coffee can be so intertwined into a culture and have so many layers to it.
Yeah, I don't even drink coffee, so like I guess I would never get married in Turkey. But anyway,
maybe they'd give you tea, or yeah, you'd be a bachelor forever.
I would be a bachelor for life. No one would be reading my fortune from my coffee grounds, I guess. But
no.
Anyway, so let's talk about the vegan scene in Istanbul. It's surprisingly solid, I guess, eh? So what were your best spots?
Yeah, it was surprisingly solid. There are quite a few. So I would say plant-based food, veganism is on the rise. It's growing. I will say one thing that I did notice is that a lot of regular restaurants don't have well-marked menus. So that's one thing that's really lagging, which can be really challenging if you're traveling with a mixed group of people and things aren't, marked super well, which can be really frustrating. And like in many places, the difference between vegan and vegetarian isn't super well known. But if you, can decide wherever you're going to go, there are some really great vegan spots. On the Asian side, the Anatolian side, in a quiet little neighborhood, there's a place called Cumin Vegan Letzteler. Sorry about the pronunciation of that. And so they have some traditional Turkish dishes. It's a really cute little place and a quiet area. It has a little garden in the back. It was kind of like walking into someone's home. It was super sweet. And I had a stuffed eggplant there that was just terrific. And a cat came and sat with me, which was even nicer. And then another one that I liked even more, I actually tried to get to this place twice. And just because of my flight timing, I wasn't able to get back there. It's called Vegan Dukan Lokanta. And it's between Galata Tower and Taksim Square. And they do a lot of Turkish dishes, veganized. They also have a ton of gluten-free stuff, which was great for me. I had a cheese bread there and a kebab. And I was really bummed that I didn't get some baked goods or something. That place is super cute. You need to, if you're especially on the weekend, you need to get there right when it opens. I got there just a few minutes before it opens. And right after that, there was a line of people. And then back on the Anatolian side, the Asian side, and again in another quiet little residential neighborhood, there's a little family-run place. It's called Vegan Arist. And again, more kind of Turkish food. And I had meatballs there covered in a cashew cream. And that was great. At that place, I was kind of overwhelmed by the menu because it was giant. And so I asked the woman, I was like, what should I get? And she chose that for me. And that was great.
What were the meatballs made out of?
Oh, great question. I think it was a mix of, what was it? I don't think they were the Beyond meatballs. I think they were a mix of a bean and something else, maybe with some kind of a meat alternative in there. I don't really remember. They had multiple types of meatballs. That's why it was kind of overwhelming. And I told her you tell me what you like.
I mean, they were house made then though, right?
Yeah. Her mom was in the kitchen making stuff. It was super sweet. And then the last place, this one is vegan friendly and it's right by Galata Tower. It's called Dukan Galata. And they have a well-marked menu and you can get breakfast there, which is great. I did go there twice because finding breakfast options can be challenging. And they did a breakfast platter with, they made their own tofu, which I thought was super interesting. It was great. I had a beetroot latte there as well. I felt very fancy. It was expensive. I think one thing to keep in mind is that most people might think Turkey in general, Istanbul is super affordable, like for food, but honestly, the pricing is very similar to Europe. Like the breakfast that I had at that place, it was $30. And that was actually, so that would have been more than I would have spent here. So I got like the tourist upcharge on it, and then just the fact that food is more expensive. As I'd say, food is more expensive on the European side versus the Anatolian side. So to save a little money, go to the other side. But it's definitely like if you're thinking, like in other parts of Asia, that it's, very affordable against the euro or the dollar. It's not. I was kind of surprised at some of my food bills when I saw the credit card statement.
Okay, so before we head out at Istanbul and get into some of the smaller cities around Turkey, just real quickly, scale of 1 to 10, like what's your feeling overall of the vegan scene in Istanbul, in the city in general?
Oh, well, that's kind of challenging.
It's just
Like,
a quick first
and
reaction.
I'd say it's a solid like 6.5,
Six and a
7.
half. Okay.
Yeah, like I don't know that I'd say it's quite a B. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's just that everything is pretty drawn out. So it does take a bit to get around to everything. And so the options that you get to are really fabulous, but it just takes a little bit more effort.
So did it meet your expectation or exceed your expectation?
I'd say I met them, especially with my expectation going in, thinking that maybe I was gonna be in French Fryville for over a week.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't think a big cultural city like Istanbul would be French Fryville, but I get it. I get it. So next, you were headed to somewhere close to the sea, and it's more full of ancient legend. The next places are Kanakale and Troy. So, what was it like visiting Kanakale? Did the slower pace feel like a welcome contrast from the big craziness in Istanbul, or how are you feeling there?
That's a good question. So it was getting into like the Gallipoli Peninsula is really beautiful. It is quiet. An interesting thing is that area and that peninsula, it's actually protected from major resorts. That whole area, it's not it's not a UNESCO heritage site. I think it's just a protected by the government area. And so it's really beautiful. It's not super busy, really gorgeous sea views. It does look like the perfect place where you would want to like hang out on the beach, which was kind of surprising. I didn't really expect that close to Istanbul. And then from there, the closest city is Kanakkale, and it's just like a little coastal town. I don't recommend trying to, get into this area or to get to Troy on a day trip from Istanbul because you're talking it's like 5 to 6 hours. And the interesting thing that was a little bit surprising on our way there, we did stop at like a little rest area, and it did have like a little restaurant attached to it, and they did have some vegan friendly options. I had a bean soup there and some spinach. I will say that was probably my one and only rest area that was super friendly for me. So I did appreciate that place. I wish I could remember it because unfortunately, I don't know why I naively thought this, but I just thought, okay, there'll be more of these. I'll take other pictures then. So that was like a pleasant surprise. And so this little town, there's not much to it. It's closest to a university there. So you do have some shops and some restaurants. We didn't spend a significant time there. One thing I do remember is that I did go on a hunt for finding almond milk because almond milk or any non-dairy milk was really challenging at hotels. None of the hotels had it. And so I would buy little tiny boxes of them and just carry it with me to each place. And so finding a market in that town was really challenging. I think I ended up having to give up. Like I think between like the holiday, things weren't open, and just like the selection of things wasn't great. But then from there we went on to Troy, and Troy is, very famous from, history. It's was first written down in the Iliad for anyone that loves Greek tales like you do, and I don't. Actually, when I was at Troy, I thought, oh God, why didn't I send Matt on this trip? Well, one thing is, I don't know if this is going to make me sound terrible or not. I'm just like, this isn't a part of history that I'm super enamored with. And if you go to Turkey and you do love ancient history, Turkey is a great place for you because there's lots of ancient history, lots of ruins, lots of things to wander through and wonder, would a goat have been beheaded here? Did a lady keep all of her jewels in this place? Were there naked people in this bathhouse? Yes, so you can do that in Troy. Troy was actually, I was really surprised because it was very ruiny. It wasn't an actual, there wasn't a lot of like standing pieces. You really have to use your imagination. And you're laughing at me, and I don't know why.
Well, one, you called it ruiny, and then
well,
then
I don't know.
You also, I guess, your description of what people are worried about. Oh, were people naked in a bath here? Like,
no, I'm saying you have to use your imagination because there aren't easily like there aren't rooms and things. Yes, things aren't still together, so it's just like it's honestly a big pile of rocks, guys.
Did you know the story of Troy or not really?
I mean, yeah, like the giant Trojan horse and like the basics of it and launching 1,000 ships. Like I knew the minimum. All right, I don't think there was a test for me to get into this.
So you wouldn't suggest people go there, or would you suggest people go there?
So here's the caveat for just about everything in life. It depends on what your interests are. If you like ancient history, if you're interested in Greek mythology, yeah, like this is your place. Like you're going to want to go here. You want to go to the museum that's attached to it. You will want to go with a guide who is really knowledgeable about this. And there are some, there are some tales with how this is maybe connected to the Nazis. Like there's a whole lot like tied into this. So if that's like your thing, then this is definitely for you. It's not my thing. I'm okay saying that.
I think that's fair. That's fair. You know who you are, and you're proud, and that's totally fair. But when
yes.
when you say
I like cats and coffee, guys. All right, this is me. I'm simple.
When you say Nazis and stuff, I'm thinking of like Raiders of the Lost Ark, and
I think there's a bit of that. Yeah.
And then my head goes to that scene where he's fighting that big guy next to that airplane and the propeller. Do you remember that whole thing? And he's like,
no. Hey there, fantastic listeners. Let's hit pause on this episode for a thrilling announcement, a golden ticket to Globetrot with Veggies Abroad. Veggies Abroad isn't just your go-to for vegan guides and trip planning tips. It's your passport to extraordinary small group journeys, carefully crafted by the ultimate veggie pusher and your favorite podcast host, me, Rebecca Gady Sawicki. I've spent countless hours researching the best vegan hotels, food, and experiences, and now I'm bringing those experiences directly to you. Join me and my newfound veggie pals on escapades to exotic and exciting destinations around the world, whether it's trekking through the Thai jungle to witness elephants in their natural habitat or exploring Iceland's famous ring road. Our adventures are nothing short of spectacular, and guess what? Those aren't the only exciting trips awaiting you. So what are you waiting for? Cruise on over to veggiesabroad.com pronto. Well, how about after this episode is over to explore our dazzling lineup of tours and secure your spot today. Anyway, move on. Next city.
All right. So we're going to leave and head towards one of the oldest cities in the world, which is still buzzing with tourists. And that would be Ephesus. And you stayed in Selçuk, right?
Yeah, I think it's pronounced Selçuk.
Okay.
But my Turkish is probably about as good as yours, so we'll accept both for this podcast. And yes, most people stay here in this little town because they want to go to Ephesus. And Ephesus is another ancient Greek ruin, Greek Turkish ruin. It is far more together, or it's far more built than Troy. There's much more to see. Ephesus is, I I would personally say, as someone who doesn't have like a deep interest in the history, it was more interesting to go to Ephesus than it was to Troy. I think it's far worth it. So if I were advising someone, unless it was of deep interest to them, this history, I would say skip Troy and just do this, because by the end of this, like, there's other ruins in this area, and we did make some other stops, and I was like, if I have to see one more ruin, I am gonna start walking myself back to Istanbul. Like, good Lord. I think everybody kind of has a cap on how much they can withhold and take of certain topics until they're like, all right, enough is enough. And so for me, Greek history is that. But the little town that we stopped in, we got there late because of traffic. Traffic in parts of Turkey, traffic in Istanbul, terrible, terrible, terrible. But it's cute. It's a little sleepy town. I actually really did kind of like that about it. There were good multiple markets though that did sell almond milk and did have gluten-free products. So that was super helpful for me. So I packed my bag there, because in all these little towns, food options did get really, really challenging. And so there are some vegan dishes that are naturally gluten-free or normally gluten-free, but I didn't get the luck of experiencing a ton of them, and except for like the bean soup, of course. There's a fava bean dish. I did have that. I kind of thought it was terrible, just as a side note, but I ate it because I didn't have many options. There's some like lentil patties. I never came across the lentil patties, unfortunately. Grape leaves are kind of common. And then shepherd's salad. So a funny note, and everyone listening will be able to understand this. Generally speaking, I would say, like, if you're going somewhere that could be challenging, always go with a local, because they're going to help you with navigating food. And that has never failed me. I've been parts of the world where I thought, oh my God, French fries is going to be it. But our guide always like came through. Unfortunately, on this time, I did not have the world's best guide. He actually at one point told me, do you know how challenging it is to make soup without butter? And when he said that, I thought, all right, and this is where my diet begins. And so that did make my adventure through everywhere except for Istanbul like really kind of rough. One of the evenings, my dinner was green beans and olive oil, which is a traditional Turkish dish, but you kind of need more than green beans for dinner. So one thing that I ate a ton of is something called a shepherd's salad. And it's pretty much cucumbers, tomatoes, and I think one other thing. Sometimes they do put cheese in it. Now, obviously, you can get it without the cheese. And so that I had many versions of, and I kind of never want to see a cucumber or tomato for a little while. And then I was at another place, and he said, okay, how about salad again? And I said, how about no? Like, there has to be something else. And so, and this was like in the same area near Ephesus. I think it was right after we visited Ephesus. And he goes, okay, they've got a mixed grill. And I was like, what is a mixed grill? He was like, it's vegetables. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. So it comes, and it was grilled vegetables mixed with French fries. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think anybody was going to mix French fries together with grilled vegetables, but some talented person decided to do it. I remember afterwards he was like, how was that? And I said, I think you know the answer. And I walked away.
The only answer you could possibly give there is, I think you know the answer.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. But anyway, that kind of like really gives you a food idea outside of Istanbul. I will preface this that there are other parts of Turkey that are far more tourist heavy. The next one we'll get into a little bit more is Izmir. Izmir is another larger city, and it's known for being more progressive and secular and liberal leaning. And so I think there are a few vegan and vegetarian places in the city. I went on an adventure to find a place that was supposed to be vegan friendly, which is another funny story. And then Bodrum, which is kind of like a schickimicki spot. It's a coastal area, beach. Really high end resorts are there, so it gets many international clientele. You'll have an easier time there. Or in the south, there's other areas where there are resorts and things. Again, bringing in more international clientele, so you'll have a little easier there as well. But when you get into some of these smaller towns, nah, girl, you get shepherd salad with no cheese, and you might get some French fries. That's your dinner.
I love how you're in one of the best preserved ancient cities in the world, um, with like these unique highlights, like the Library of Celsus and the Temple of Artemis, and you're just basically like, "Nah, girl, I don't even want to talk about those places. I want to talk about like this nasty shepherd salad I had." Cool, I get it.
Well,
Who you?
okay. Well, I mean, I know what people want to know about. They want to know, did I starve or not? But yes, back to Ephesus, because you love Greek history so much. It was definitely worth a visit. The library was really neat to see. It is still standing. I mean, obviously not the whole library, but the columns leading into it, which is really beautiful. There's quite a bit that you can wander through. I think we spent almost 3 hours there, so again, it gives you an idea of how large it is. And this again is another place I wouldn't go to without a guide,
Yeah,
because you're going to wander through like these areas. You're not going to have any idea that this area was a marketplace, that these areas were bathhouses, that this was a library at one point. So that really helps you paint a picture of what this city and what life would have been like 2,000 years ago.
very cool. So let's shift to the more progressive and liberal Izmir. Tell me about your experience there. How did that cultural shift feel after more traditional areas?
So we didn't, our time in Izmir was super short, and it was really to get there so we could take the overnight train to Konya. Izmir is the third largest city in Turkey, and after Istanbul and Ankara. And it is much busier than obviously these smaller cities, not quite as busy as Istanbul. One thing that was super interesting, and I never got a full answer on this, is that you'll find a ton of dress shops in Izmir. So I believe that Izmir might also be a hub for folks with that kind of ability of like dressmaking, of creativity, fashion. Dresses are quite popular for Muslim ladies. Long dresses is really what I'm trying to say here. But also like very beautiful over the top ones are also available. So it was interesting kind of to see that distinction wandering around. And so when I got there, I was dead set on finding food. And so I found a place that was, it was a 25-minute walk from where I was, and they gave us like 2 hours maybe of free time. And so I was like, all right, I'm doing this. And I just took off on my adventure to try and get to this place. And I remember the guy, it was like supposed to be like a salad, like falafel type place. Falafel, which we all generally get in many places as our go-to, was truly super hard to find in Turkey. And so this place was supposed to have falafel. And so I asked him, I was like, can I have this vegan? And again, he was not thrilled with me. And I think because he was not thrilled with me nor my request, he did not give it to me vegan. And I was very sad to find that out once I got on the train. But my roommate on the train was pleased. So I guess maybe one of us got something out of it. But I mean, Izmir honestly was a lot like Istanbul. Busy, a really mixed population, a mix of like things. Still like some traditional like markets and all of that.
Good
But
vegan
I
scene over
mean,
there?
I wouldn't say good. There were 3 restaurants, maybe.
Oh, it sounds better than where you were.
Well, yeah, yeah. So I mean, so that was good. At least like you're gonna have more options if you decided to stay in that area, or you were just staying overnight. You wouldn't get French fries and roasted vegetables, or I'm sorry. What was it? Yeah, roasted vegetables, or however they made the dumb vegetables.
And you don't feel like if you went to a non-vegan restaurant or something like that, that they would have many vegan options. It would just be the shepherd
Well,
salad.
spent a ton of time in non-vegan, vegetarian restaurants, and that's when I got my mixed vegetables with French fries or 18th shepherd salad.
Chef special.
Yeah, most of them did not have like an option, like not even like just one thing that they're like, yeah, we got this one thing always for you guys. But no, they're like, it just wasn't. It was salad, French fries was really what I got. And actually one other person was like, oh yeah, we've got ravioli for you. I was like, no, that's not vegan.
Oh man.
Thanks, guys.
All right, well, let's hop on that overnight train. Tell me about that experience. How was that?
I was dreading it. I'm not going to lie. And I was only dreading it because I had done one other overnight train in Thailand.
Yeah, yes.
That was a bit of a rough. And if you listen back a couple episodes, I did a train conversation about train travel with another lovely company called Byway. And so I did talk about the chicken yelling guy on the train in Thailand. But this was much different. The overnight train from Izmir to Konya was terrific. We had our own private cabins. The cabins had beds that pulled down. They had a little refrigerator, a little kind of desk area, a sink in there. They were really clean. So that was great. Similar to Thailand, there are issues kind of with efficiencies. It's not super fast. It would actually be quicker to drive there. But, this is definitely more efficient, just like with scheduling time.
Yeah, bunk bed?
What? Bunk beds, yes. Yeah, and the bunk beds were funny because we couldn't figure out the ladder situation to get up to mine because I took the top one. And so I had to like hang down like a monkey to get in and out of that thing, which added to the entertainment of the entire experience.
What an amazing picture of you hanging from the top bunk to get up and down. This is so great.
Yes. In the middle of the night, I thought, I really hope I don't have to go to the bathroom.
Oh, no.
Because that would have been really, really, really rough. I will say it is a little loud, but this is going to be a common thing with a lot of overnight trains. So definitely bring earplugs. An eye mask is a good idea. But it was super comfortable. It was way better than I expected. I would totally do it again.
All right, so you're on the train. You get yourself over there to Konya. Let's talk about Konya and Rumi. Let's group those guys together. What was your overall impression of Konya? You mentioned, I think it felt quiet, almost eerie to me or something.
Yeah, it is really quiet. It was really quiet. It is one of the more conservative cities in Turkey. It is also one of Turkey's oldest cities, and it is considered like a spiritual kind of place or a spiritual kind of capital of the city as well. And it's most famously associated with a Persian poet and Sufi mystic, Rumi, whose tomb is located there, and people come from all over to kind of see him. Konya is also the birthplace of the whirling dervishes, which is a Sufi order, and they're known for their meditative spinning dances. In contrast to like cities like Izmir, Konya is considered definitely much more conservative. There are strong religious and traditional values there, and you definitely, in comparison to Istanbul or Izmir, more people are much more covered up. Women are covered completely on the street. So, right away, you will kind of notice a difference. Rumi's tomb was definitely the busiest spot in town, and it's really beautiful. He became really popular for his profound spiritual beliefs and teachings. He was also the founding of the whirling dervishes, and he emphasized love and compassion and direct connection between the soul and the divine in his work. And that we know was deeply personal and connected with a lot of people. His influence, really spread throughout the Islamic world and eventually globally. And his work was translated in the 20th century, which then grew his Western audiences, which then, you have an understanding of why, or people wanting to come to see this guy's kind of tomb. Today, he's cited as one of the best-selling poets in the U.S., which I did not know. He remains a beloved figure for those seeking meaning, peace, and spiritual insight. It also should be noted that the order, the Malvani order, wasn't, and still today isn't, supported by those who follow a more conservative Islamic teaching. So depending on who you talk to, once again, just like so many things in this world, you might get a different perspective. Some people, really adored, looked up to him, thought he was a great character. Other people, not so much. So, an interesting part of the history. And that was all that we actually did in Konya. And then from Konya, we headed to Cappadocia, which is a really popular area. I'd say most people who come to Turkey definitely do Istanbul and then Cappadocia as well.
Yeah, so tell us about your cave hotel in Cappadocia. How was that? Cozy or quirky?
Yeah, so what was it?
Cozy or quirky?
I'd say cozy. That's a weird word coming out of your mouth, quirky. So the Cappadocia region, for anybody who doesn't know, it's really well known for like these beautiful valleys and caves and these mountainous structures called fairy chimneys. It's also really popular for hot air balloons. Really, really, really beautiful area. It's kind of it's definitely a surreal landscape. And the cave dwellings are really interesting. So people began carving into these rocks thousands of years ago for practical and defensive reasons. The cave dwellings, homes offered protections from obviously the climate. You could stay cool in the winter, you could stay cool in the summer and warm in the winter. And you could also avoid invaders. And then during periods of religious persecution, early Christians used the caves and underground cities as places to live and worship and hide. And so you can see, like, going through just the valleys in Cappadocia, you can see like how some of these homes actually were homes, which was crazy. But then a really cool place to visit is called the Kalmalki Underground City. It's one of the largest and most impressive underground cities in Cappadocia. It's carved into the volcanic rock, and it stretches for 8 levels deep. You can only go to the first 4 levels, the public can. Yeah, it's crazy. And it was used for centuries as a refuge by local populations, particularly early Christians, during times of invasion or religious persecution. The city is really an extraordinary feat of engineering. There are narrow tunnels connecting mazes of rooms. You can see like living quarters, kitchens where stables and horses lived, which I thought was nuts. A wine cellar, even churches. Like, that was really cool. I would say we did get a warning before we went in there. Like, if you are claustrophobic, this isn't a place for you. Also, if you're not comfortable with maybe like getting down really low and kind of having to crawl in certain points, then it's definitely going to be a struggle. You have to watch your head. But definitely crazy to think like people lived underground, and they had created ventilation shafts, which was really interesting. It was just a really unique thing to see for sure.
It sounds absolutely surreal, but I really want to know about the hot air balloon. Did you hop on one of those rides, or at least catch them
Oh
from
my God.
sunrise?
No. Hard pass. You'd have to pay me to get in a hot air balloon. So you can do the hot air balloon experience. Obviously, that's really popular. You can just watch the hot air balloons as well in the morning, which is just beautiful as well, I think, to see. A chunk of the group that I was with did. Actually, all of the people that were in my group did go and do the hot air balloon ride. So I got to see their photos, which was great. Where we were staying, our cave hotel, or our hotel, was just outside of like kind of the main valley area where you could see them easily. But there are some hotels that you can stay in that are right in that valley area where you could wake up and just have your coffee and watch them, which I think would be a really beautiful experience. One thing to note with it, if you are going to do the hot air balloon ride, you're going to have to get up really early, like 3 a.m. Because they got to pick you up. They got to get you out there. You have to do the safety stuff. And then you need to be up in the air by 6 for the sun to rise.
Yeah.
So if that's too much for you, you could take a taxi out, or if you're driving to the Red or Love Valley. One of those places, I think it was the Love Valley, actually has a little cafe there set up too. So you can hang out there if your hotel isn't nearby.
Did you have a lot to eat in Cappadocia?
I mean, a lot. No. I will say got a tiny bit better. One of the girls that was in our group, she was super sweet, Australian girl. She sent me a picture at 4 a.m. of a place that she passed that had a sign that said vegan options. It was in a neighboring town. So we stayed in Urgup, but other popular towns in the Cappadocia area are Gorum, Ushar, and Avanos. And so when they were going out, she saw that sign. So she sent that to me. We did go to a restaurant that did have a vegetable dish. So one way to that's popular to make like meat and vegetable dishes is in like a clay pot. So they cook it in this clay pot, then they bring it out and with a hammer they knock on it, and it's like a whole thing. So they just roasted vegetables for me in this clay pot and brought it out, which I'd say the act of them banging on something with a hammer was the most exciting part of the roasted vegetables. But at least there were no French fries with that. And I think I got a watermelon juice. So that did feel like a bit of an upgrade. I did go off on my own one night, and I went to a place that had some like tapas. So I had like an aubergine dish, some fava beans. So some things that kind of feel like they have some like Greek, Turkish influence. And so that was fine. That was surprisingly really expensive, though. I think that was, again, like one of those things I was like, that was $30. So just another thing kind of to keep in mind.
All right. So before we wrap things up, let's just go over a couple of tips and Veggies Abroad tricks you have for travel to Turkey. What's the best time of year to visit Turkey, in your opinion?
I would say early spring or fall. Avoid it at all costs in the summer. It was starting to get pretty hot for us. There were some times that it did feel kind of oppressive. It was manageable. That is for sure. In this winter, there are areas of the country that do get snow. So that's something to keep in mind. I think some people would think, oh, they don't get snow. But yeah, Cappadocia region, you can still visit. And there are some pretty pictures that I did see. But if snow is not something for you, keep in mind. So those shoulder seasons would be better.
How easy was it to get around, especially without speaking much Turkish? And then what cultural norms or surprises really stood out to you, especially as a woman traveling?
Oh, wow. Two big questions built into one there. So getting around, I would say, does take some effort. I had transportation lined up ahead of time, which made things much easier. You could try and drive on your own. Did seem like, roads and everything were all, pretty well managed. But it does take a lot of time. Speed limits are not the same as maybe what some of us are used to. Traffic is kind of awful in some parts of the country. So, that's something to keep in mind. Train connections are not, plentiful in certain areas. So you would need to have things kind of pre-planned out. Don't just wing it like you're, going to parts of Europe. So that's like the first part, except like in Istanbul, obviously you can get around with transport really easily. You don't need a car. I would not advise having a car in that city. Oh my gosh, no, unless you wanted to kind of go nuts. And then cultural differences, it is a predominantly Muslim country. And so, the level of conservativeness is going to be more than what most of us kind of, listening are used to, it does vary from place to place. In Istanbul, it's a mix, just like anywhere else in the world. Same with like Izmir, but in more rural or smaller areas, you will see people more covered up. So, something to keep in mind. If you're used to wearing dresses or skirts, make sure that they're a bit longer. You will, and if you're going to the Hagia Sophia or the Blue Mosque, even if you're just staying in Istanbul, you're going to need to stay covered. And they are very, very strict with this. Your head needs to be covered. Your skirts need to go down below your knees. They will check as you're walking through. And actually, so I was wearing a skirt, I think, and it went down to my ankle, actually, but there was a tiny slit in it. And so they at first gave me, the slit was like 2 inches, so it didn't go much higher. And they actually at first gave my guide a hard time about it. And so we talked about, okay, do I need to use a hairband or something to tie this? But then they just let it go. But that's just something to keep in mind. If you've gotten away with things in other places, you might not get away with it here. Now, if you do show up and you're not prepared, you can purchase a robe or these. I saw other people in a full kind of jumpsuit outfit that is fully covering. So, that could be, an option for you as well. But I would just go into it, just be prepared, bring a scarf with you if you're a woman, as so that, you don't end up in trouble. And then also, another thing that you might run into, especially in more conservative areas, is that, drinking alcohol would not be incredibly popular, or alcohol options might not be available at certain places. And then, of course, if you're a light sleeper, you might need some earplugs because the call of prayer does go off multiple times a day. And that can be kind of disturbing for some people. I did not hear it in every place, but some places it did wake me up. And the first one goes off, I think, around 4 a.m. And the one time it did, I hadn't slept well. And that can be a little aggravating to be woken up when you don't want to be woken up.
All right, so closing things out, let's just reflect on everything, and maybe you can share some things that other people might be considering when they want to travel here. What city surprised you the most?
Good question. I mean, I think Istanbul surprised me the most, just because the food was really good. The surprising holiday traffic was, something that I didn't have in mind. Getting around was pretty easy. Yeah, I mean, I did a little article, and I'll put it in the show notes, about things that are just kind of surprising in general with Turkey, things that you might not think of, as far as we already talked about the coffee and the tea and things along those lines. And so I think that's good for further reading before you go. But I did like Istanbul quite a bit. Thought it was a unique place. There's definitely a lot to see. It can be a little overwhelming, so pace yourself.
Do you think you'd have a client tour here in the future?
You mean a small group tour?
Yeah.
Okay. Possibly. One thing that would be neat to focus on, because it would not be something you'd necessarily think of in the country, is one a more of a focus on women, and women artists, women-owned businesses. That's something of interest to me, and to highlight down the road. So I think that would be a unique place to do that, is to highlight women in a country that aren't highlighted.
It sounds like they need to step up their vegan scene a little bit, though, more, in order to make it more friendly. So it's you want to take people there, but you still need to be able to eat if you're going to go and see the country. So, maybe when you do make inroads with their vegan scene, then it's something that people could go and visit.
Well, honestly, I think it comes down to the local support that you have. I didn't have great local support, but I know other people who did have great local support, and their experience was wildly different. So that makes a big difference. And the same kind of thing, like a country like Morocco, not incredibly vegan friendly, but there are definitely options and you're not going to starve. But it comes down to the local support that you have that can, make or break a trip. And, like so many places, options are diversifying, but it takes time.
What's the biggest personal takeaway you had from that journey?
Personal? Wow.
Is there anything you'll keep with you from it? That's all. You don't have to share anything crazy. Just, is there something that, like, when you think of Turkey, you're going to remember?
I mean, honestly, I'll remember the cats quite a bit, and not necessarily in the most positive light. And we didn't talk about this on the onset, so it is many of you might have watched the documentary Kedi, which kind of shines a light on like this cat city. So in Istanbul, you will find cats everywhere. I think one thing people have to recognize is that Istanbul is large, and parts of the city are more affluent than others. So where tourists generally visit, it is more affluent. People have more means to, take care of these animals, but the population has gotten out of control. It is a huge issue. There's no reason that there needs to be this many cats on the street. And like some of the cats do look really rough. And I did pass some areas that like had some little cat areas sanctioned off that people were trying to create little cat homes for and raising money to take care of the cats. And there are some very sick cats there, which is good that somebody's trying to do something, but it should have never gotten to the stage that it's at. I read that, there is an estimate that up to 1 million cats are stray throughout Istanbul, and then there's even more throughout the country. So it's not just an Istanbul thing. And, there are issues, of course, with cruelty, especially in areas that aren't more affluent. And I will stick an article in the show notes. There is a volunteer that wrote a really good one, and he's been working in Istanbul for a long time. And he kind of talked about it from his perspective, like how much of a struggle this is. And dogs are also a big problem. So cats get a lot of the attention. In Muslim culture, cats are seen as they're seen as clean, they're cherished animals. You will notice them more in countries that are predominantly Muslim, where on the other hand, dogs are not seen in the same light. They are considered dirty. Some people are very scared of them. Some people think that they're very dangerous. And so the stray dog population has gotten out of control as well. And there was actually a huge outcry over the dog population the beginning, not beginning of this year, last year. And the government called for the removal of stray dogs through the street, and largely through euthanasia. And this, sparked protest and backlash because critics say that the government failed to enforce previous animal welfare laws to spay and neuter these animals. And so now these animals are kind of paying the price. And it's sad because, it's sad because of these animals are suffering, and it's unnecessarily. It's because of people. But at the same time, the country, the city, Istanbul, is making money off of it, because you'll find cat souvenirs, cat t-shirts, cat tote bags, cat, everything, because people think it's cute. And so then it just perpetuates this issue that this is a cute and acceptable thing, but there's nothing cute about this level of neglect and cruelty. So I'd say that was one thing that I will definitely take away, and just, it really bothered me. I didn't think you thought that I would end on that.
Yeah, I'm
Sorry
trying to
about
figure out a
that.
positive note to end it on, but I think that that's something that can really sink in, is just that there are animals that suffer in this world. And obviously part of the reason that we're vegan, and the hope is that maybe the situation can change for the better there. And maybe part of that is promoting the cats in Istanbul and documentaries and things like that. So anyway, that was
Well,
a
the
lot of great.
documentary didn't, the problem with the documentary is they didn't talk about this side of it. It was just that, cats are everywhere. They're cute. They are in the metro and blah, blah, blah. It talked about the history, if I remember correctly, but I think the neglect and the cruelty kind of got left out of it. So It's that they're promoting as a city, as a country, this one side of the issue, but they're not promoting the entire issue.
Yeah.
And that's why, I'll share that article from that volunteer, because I think it's really good to hear the perspective of someone who's working in it, who's trying to support these animals and, fundraising for them, using his own money for an issue that shouldn't have ever gotten out of hand like this. It's unacceptable.
Well, I guess if people want to go and see for themselves and find out more about Turkey, how can they do that? Can they just contact you? Do you set up trips to Turkey?
Yeah. For private clients, so we don't have any trips going to Turkey anytime soon. But any private clients that are interested in taking a visit to Istanbul, Cappadocia, or other areas outside of those two, absolutely reach out, and we can put something together for you. Did I miss anything? Were there any other lingering questions you had on this Turkish adventure? I was trying to think of something funny to loop in that mixed grill of French fries, but I can't.
Yeah, I don't think I have any more questions. I know there's a lot that we didn't really get into. We didn't even get into Turkish delights and your Turkish bath.
Oh my gosh, Turkish delights, yes. But what I will say is that I've written a few articles from this adventure. We'll drop those in the show notes along with the volunteer article. So if you're thinking about going to Turkey and you want to read about some other things that maybe surprised me or about other food options, that will all be there for you.
Did you write about the Turkish bath in any of your posts?
Oh, no. I don't know that I did, but I guess that will have to be for another podcast episode.
Definitely. You got to share that experience with people. Very foamy.
Yeah. Well, yes, very foamy. I guess we'll leave it there on a very foamy note. Thanks for joining me.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. If you did, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. If you'd also like to learn more about upcoming Veggies Abroad tours or get additional travel help, visit veggiesabroad.com and also join our newsletter. It's the best way to stay up to date with loads of new content, like where to find gorgeous vegan hotels, what to eat in cities around the world, trip planning tips, and so much more. Well, that's all I've got for now. Until next time.